Hi, I'm Mary Ann. I'm really happy to be here. I started with the St. Louis Arc as a direct support professional working in the homes and residential. And then I moved into several different positions, from a management support manager position to a coordinator, assistant director. And then I was the director at our Dot-Tel location for 20 years. And I just say that I aged in place with everyone that I was supporting, who really helped me kind of look at that whole aging experience for the people that we support. I had the privilege of assisting people who were in their final journey of life while they were receiving hospice services, and worked with families in that capacity, which was very much a privilege to be able to be there with individuals. And then after I left residential, I moved into this position as director of senior services and navigation of residential supports. And what I do in this position is, one, I work with our support staff in being able to educate them and give them more resources in working with people who are aging. And Ann and I worked on a grant with the series that we call Planning Forward, to really help families look at where they are today and where they want to be tomorrow, and the questions they may need to ask themselves, as well as their family member with a disability, so that everybody, one, is learning together and kind of talking about what they want their future life to look like. And so that was really successful, and it helps people to start planning now before they get into crisis. And Lord knows that that's really important, because when you need something, it never comes directly to you within this field if you're looking for support outside of the home. And then the other large part of my job is to work with families who have individuals who have either received a comprehensive waiver to move into residential services, and or people who may be able to private pay, to work through the system and the whole transitional process for people to move into their new homes. Mostly the people that I am working with are people who have received the comprehensive waiver through the Department of Mental Health / the St. Louis Regional Office, and working with the families to, one, really look at what are the services that are provided in residential, have them meet and tour different homes. So you're going to meet the people who live in the homes and tour the homes to get a feel whether or not the people who live there would be, you know, a good match as a roommate or a housemate for your family member. And that's a big piece of what I do, along with the facilitation of the transition meeting, which is facilitated by the Department of Mental Health. But at the same time, there's a huge role of assuring that it happened, and of a lot of things that happen after that fact.
So I'm going to just butt in. I have to ask this, because I think families think, oh, I have the waiver, all my problems are solved now, and why would I need to come through a navigator? And I know you've got the history of having been in the residential director role previously. What do you see as the gap? Why do we need to have some support for the family once they already get this funding to get the right residential placement?
Well, I mean, I think that right there, that says it all, the right residential placement. What does that mean? What does that look like for your family member? You know, many of the things that you want to look at when you're looking at different providers is what their philosophy of the agency are, what's the turnover of their staff, a multitude of other pieces of getting out in the community and doing the things and living the life that your family member wants to live. But it's also getting to know people before you move in. It's a huge move, as you know, when you're moving. If you've lived at home all of your life and now you're moving into a home with some other people that you don't know, you want to know them before you move, or at least have some good interaction so that it's not just, hello, well, here you are in your new home. So there's a lot that goes in between that, as well as looking at funding and whatnot. But I don't want to get too far into that whole residential piece because I could talk about it forever.
Yeah, I was
the
about
other
to cut you
piece
off.
that I would say that I also do is I do work with a lot of families before they receive that comprehensive waiver, and one assuring that they're able to provide the information to their support coordinators to really help them move that process along. So a lot of times I'm like, hey, Kate, this person is for you. It's the wrong age for me. And sometimes it'll be more direct navigation that needs to happen. And I'm sending forward someone to Anne. So sometimes I do pass people along, but there are some people that I am able to provide some of that direct navigation to. So I had an individual who we had been working with for a couple of years, and his family and he were very interested in residential supports, but they ended up before, well, let me just say that they had self-directed supports for a while, where mom and dad were looking for and finding different people to come in and provide those supports. And while the individual still lived at home, as well as going to a day program and some other things. Well, they got to the point where they were ready for their son to move, but yet they were still really anxious about that, and weren't sure that they wanted him to move out of the house because they weren't sure how successful he would be, because he needs more space. This individual has autism, and really felt that he needed more direct guidance and more one-on-one support. So there was a whole, I'd say, totally different meetings that we had, which was one to educate the team on what his supports look like and how he communicated, and working with the support manager to assure that he was very versed in what the supports look like. And then it was all during COVID. So being able to come and get into the house at that time was not as easy, because we didn't want, everybody you have to keep your distance and whatnot. So we did a combination of some Zoom meetings, as well as I had made up a PowerPoint presentation of this is the home. These are the people who live in the home. And just to give him a feel for what this is, so that he wasn't going in with not even having a clue of what he would be venturing to. And he moved in, and he said that he was really happy. He'd been there, I think it was like a month and a half, and he was really happy with his supports. And he was so glad that he had moved out of the home, and that I think that the family also saw that the supports that he needed weren't as intense as what they thought that maybe they needed to be, and that he liked having his freedom and time to himself.